Hi everyone, it's Deb again, and we're going to do another video with the Art Essentials, the new Art Essentials by Finnabair. And this time we're going to use the rust paste along with the art stones and a few trinkets. So one of the things that happened when I was on my last trip home was my dad had taken all of his old reel-to-reels and had them converted to CD. So he was going to throw all the canisters and the reels away. Well, of course, I wanted some to work with. So I took, I don't know, maybe 6, not very many. I didn't take them all. Um, and that's what we're going to use today. I took the reel out, and this is just the canister. And we're going to convert that with the rust paint. Now, I really like this kind of bluish color that it is, so I'm going to leave that without painting much on it. I just want to add a rusty effect to it. So we're going to get started here, and I hope you enjoy this video. Okay, so the first thing I want to do, I'm not going to cover this because I'm going to put a frame over it, so I don't have to worry about that a little bit. So the first thing I'm going to do is take the can apart, and I'm not going to do very much to this because I want it, you know, once you put the cover on, there's not a lot to it. And like I said, I want that to show through. But the only thing I'm going to do is like around the edge on the bottom here and the edge on the top here. And we're going to start out with our rust paste. Now these actually have some texture in it, but I'm going to add the mini art stones to add a little extra, just because I think that will add something to it. So I'm going to start by opening this, and I'm going to use what's on the cover here so I'm not wasting it. And I'm going to use my palette knife and pull that off. Oops, tripped on. And I'm just going to start randomly putting it around the edge. And I don't want it to be, you know, completely perfect, not like it was, you know, not like this was done on purpose. So I want it to look like it maybe sat in some water and got rusted. So I'm just putting a little bit on. And again, and I may take some of that off even. Okay, so that's what I've got so far. I hope you can, let me see if I can get this to focus. There we go. So I just kind of put it around the edge, and I don't know if you can see too much of the texture. There you can see it a little bit. And this is where I'm going to go in with my paper towel, and I want the texture, so I've crumpled it up, and I'm just going to dab some of that back off. And I'm not worrying about where it goes. If I smush it and it lands elsewhere, then it was meant to be. See how that kind of just got on the bottom there? And that's okay. So just randomly getting texture on there. So now it looks like it's actually been sitting out and gotten rust, if you can see that. Okay, there's a few more places that it could use. All right, so I'm going to turn that one upside down to dry for now. And I'm going to go ahead and use this one and wipe this off because I didn't mean for it to drop there. Okay, now on this one I'm actually going to add a little bit more texture. So again, I'm going to use what's on this top so I'm not wasting, and then we'll move on to the jar as I need it. So I'm using the brown first. And I'm just putting some in my bowl. Okay, I can get rid of that now. And I'm going to need just a little bit more, I believe. Not a lot. Maybe that much, just a dab. I'm going to put that in there. And I want to add a few of these mini art stones to give it just a bit more texture. And I'm not sure, you know, how much I'm going to need. I may add more. This is just totally playing and deciding what you like. And now I've got a much thicker paste. And that might actually even be too much. So I'm going to add a drop or two of water just to wet it down a little bit. There we go. rather than wasting more of the color, I just add a little bit of water that will thin it to get it to the point where I actually like it. Okay, so now I'm going to do basically the same thing around the edge of this one. I'm just kind of spreading it on. And this one, I'm actually going to do a little bit on the sides as well. I want it to be a lot more textured. And I'm avoiding the very bottom down here as much as I can so that it doesn't interfere with the closing of the tin. I've got a pretty thick coat, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go in with my crumpled paper towel, and I'm just going to sponge some of that back off. And basically I'm also pushing it in so that the texture shows. All right, so we've got that layer done. And I'm going to rinse off my palette knife and be right back. Okay, so while we're waiting for that to dry, I'm going to move on to what I want to be my center focal point here. And I've chosen this frame, and I'm going to use some black gesso on it. You could use white or whatever you like. It does come in the mixed media kit that I've got for sale. And actually, this is not from that kit. This is from my personal stash. Just because I don't like opening more than one bottle when I've got it already open, because it dries up and goes bad then. So okay, and this may take a couple of coats. This is a resin frame, and I just picked it up in the dollar bin at Michael's. Is completely covered in gesso, and it has to dry. And it's I think I'm probably going to end up giving it a second coat, but not positive yet. So I'm going to move that off to the side. And our texture paste is almost completely dry already. So it does dry really quickly. And I'm going to move on now, and I'm going to use a little bit of this yellow color. It's a three-step color process, and this is almost like a mustard yellow, I would call it. So you can see. And this is more of the paint. So you've got the textured in the brown, and this is a little more like paint. And it does have a very, very fine grit to it. But I'm going to use a thinner paintbrush because I don't want a lot of this color on there. I'm just going to dab it off. And I'm just going to, put it on here and there. Again, I don't want it, I don't want it super heavy. And actually, a lot of this will probably get covered back up once we move on to the orange color. And then I'm also going to add some turquoise to give it that verdigris color. So just dabbing it on, nothing elaborate. As you can see, there's no plan to it, just sticks here and there. And I'm going to go back with with a different paper towel now and just do the same thing, dab to get some of that texture. And you have to be pretty quick because this is actually drying really fast before I even got to that point. So do it a little bit at a time on this next piece. by combining the colors, whoops, I got my paintbrush in the paint. By combining the colors is how you get that authentic rusted look. Because otherwise, with just the brown, it kind of, you know, looks like mud or something stuck on it. So you want to, you know, make sure that you get the combination of the colors. Okay, so that looks good. And because I didn't put very much on, and I used a brush, it will dry, it's dry already. So I'm gonna cover that back up. Oh shoot, I just spilled it. So this is a little watery, so be careful. That's my fault. I wasn't paying attention. I tipped it. Okay, so I've cleaned up my mess, and I'm going to move on to the actual rusty color now. And this is more like what the brown was in texture. And I'm actually going to just use a crumpled paper towel to apply this time. So I just want to get it crumpled up. Get some paint on the paper towel. And now I'm going to go in and add that. And this will actually be my heavier of the colors. And what is going to give it. Okay, so I've decided not to put a second coat of gesso on this because I'm going to rust it up as well. So instead, I'm going to start adding in some embellishments, and just need to use the soft gel and start laying them in so they can dry. And like I said, the soft gel comes in the kit, and it acts like a glue, so it really is a wonderful thing. So I'm gonna lay that in there, and that piece is already rusted, so I'm going to, so is this and this. So I'm not going to add those immediately. Put in a gear. And I'm just playing. I don't really have a plan here. Using an old Miller Lite bottle cap that I got from my kids. I don't drink beer, but I do save their bottle caps. Stick that down in there. And there's another gear. Another key. And another gear again. Play that one there. And then this is a type of a paper clip that someone had sent to me, and I just thought the shape was so cool. Oop. So I'm going to add that on top of that gear. And I think, actually, let me take this key off for a second. Oop. And slide this inside that bottle cap like that. There we go. Now I'll move that gear back up, and I can put that key back on, but I think I'm going to need more. There we go. And I'm just building layers. And let's see. I think I want to use this key as well. Put it like that. There we go. Like I said, this is just about building layers at this point. And I have this brad. Open it up a bit. Give it some texture and dimension. Stick that in there. Okay, I don't really like how that's laying, so I'm going to lift it up a bit. Actually, I think I'll move it to this side. There we go. And that may not stick there. I'm having luck with this piece. It may end up not being on there if I can't figure it out. There we go. Okay. Yep, I'm liking that. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside to dry for a minute. And I'm going to go back to the bottom of the can, and I have these pieces that are from light bulbs, but there's no innards to them. It's just the casing that you would plug into the fixture. These happen to be like for tail lights and things like that. And I'm actually going to use them as the feet to my can. So I'm going to take the flat part and I'm going to place them on the can. And I will rest these up after the gel dries. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this area now. And I want to add just a little bit of like that greenish tinge to it. Ooh, this is drying out in here. That aqua and green color, whoop, it's really sticking to my fingers. So I'm going to put just a tad off to the side here. You don't need a lot. Add a little bit of aqua to it. Okay, now I'm going to mix just a little bit. Okay, but I am not going to use a brush. Instead, what I want to do is just use my finger and just going to kind of rub it here and there. Back and just use my paper towel to kind of dab that off. And here, let me see if I can get it to focus. There we go. And that's what it looks like. Focus again. Okay, so it just adds that next dimension to it. Okay, and I'm going to do the same on the edges of this. Like how this is turning out. You can see how that's got that greenish oxidized look. Okay, so I'm going to turn that upside down and let those feet cure. Now the colors that I used for the paint are this metallic Peridot by Plaid. It's a folk art paint. And this is just a cheap Craft Smart. It's called Ocean Breeze. Okay, let's go back to this now. All right, so now I've got all of those pieces on, and I want to add some of the rust effect to that. So I'm going to, and this isn't completely dry, but I think it'll be fine. So I'm going to start with the brown again. And this time I'm going to actually use a paintbrush so that I can get into different areas. And I'm not adding any texture this time. Actually, this is the rust. I want to start with the brown. But since I haven't, let's see, wipe that off. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to start with the brown, and I'm just going to go in, touch here and there. And I decided not to do a second coat because the yellow, just the little bit of yellow that was showing through, will work fine, if any does. And I'm just going to rust up all of the elements here. Brown on. I'm going to move right along. I'm not going to let it dry this time. Move right along to the yellow. And I did clean up my jar really well so that it would seal, and I wouldn't have any issues with that. Just add a hint of yellow here and there. And now the rust. Last, I should have left that paint. Last, I want to add just those touches of blue of the aqua color. So I'm just going to take a little, barely any. And mix the two together again. I'm just going to go in and barely touch. In fact, where it's too much, I'm just going to use my finger to smooth it out some. Or maybe the paper towel. And I'm barely touching that paper towel on there, just enough to take, you know, to give it some texture and take some of the brightness, I guess I would say, off of it. So I think we're going to call it quits right there. I may add a little more of the rust color. In fact, I think I will, just because I think it needs a little more of that. But the blue is done at least. And I'm going to go back in and just add a little more of the rust here and there. And again, I'm dabbing with my paper towel. And this is my dirty paper towel, so if it gets other colors on, you know, I'm okay with that. Okay, I'm liking that. And this key is not staying put, so I'm going to have to add a little bit more soft gel to it. Okay, now I'm going to add in these pieces that were already rusted. It's just an old eye bolt and a washer. And a little square cog, bolt, whatever you want to call it. I'm not really sure what this is. It's just like it's almost like a rivet. So that's what I'm going to say it is. And I'm going to add that on too. And I think right there should be good. Okay, now I'm going to let all that dry. So I'm going to set that aside. I know that I want to add this light fixture, and it's an industrial chic piece that I picked up at Michael's, but it's too bright. I need to rust it up a little bit. So I'm going to go back to my rust texture paste again. Get my brush. And I'm going to make this pretty heavily rusted because it's going to be like it was sitting up on top and got affected first. So lots of rust texture, but not entirely solid either. Moving right onto the yellow, I'm just wiping my brush off. I'm just working it in with my fingers so it doesn't look quite so much like I painted it on in blobs. Again, wiping my brush off. And I'm going to move on to the rust. And I want this quite textured, so I'm really trying to work the texture in it into the piece by adding little blobs here and there. And one more time, just a tiny bit of the green. I'm actually going to set that aside for just a second and let that dry because I also want to add these wings, but I don't want them to look as rusted. I want them to just have like the greenish tinge to them, like they were made of a better metal. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm just going to dab. Whoop. Set those off to dry. And that's looking pretty good. Okay, so now I'm going to take my top piece and I'm going to attach these wings to the sides like this. I'm actually going to use a different glue this time. Rather than the soft gel, I'm using a glue that I have here. And that way I can just hold it in place and let it dry for a second. Oop. Okay, hopefully that'll hold it up so it dries. Do the same thing on the other side. And I want these somewhat even. Okay, so I'm going to let that dry really well. Now, one of the things that Gone Artsy is going to be carrying soon, they're not in the store yet, is different size frozen Charlotte dolls. And let me just show you, I've got a few different sizes that are coming to the store. I'm going to be using this small one. They're all just slightly different, but they will come in a 3-pack like this. And I'm going to use the smallest one today. And for this, I'm going to use white gesso. Now it is already a white. It's made of a clay, but I want it to be a blue or white, if that makes sense. Here, I'll show you a comparison of this piece that I've done. And you can see this is kind of a cream and this is more of a blue-white. So I want that more blue-white look. So I'm going to use my gesso, and again, this is just what I have in my stash. The kits do come with white gesso, but I already had this one open. So just making it nice and white. Now, if you wanted perfectly smooth edges on this, you might want to sand these a little bit. They are slightly rough on the edges, but to me, that's part of the beauty of it. I like the roughness, and so I'm leaving mine. Make it smooth it out just a little bit. Okay, so now this is dry enough where I can add that green again. And I know I keep wiping it up, but this is a playtime and you add as you go. So don't want much. And I'm going to use my finger again. Mix that up. It needs a tad more blue. There we go. Okay, and I'm just going to go in and kind of rim it. Okay, I rather like how that looks. And now I'm just going to, where I made the rust lumps, I'm going to add just a touch onto the top of those as well. Like I said, I'm wiping it back out with my finger because I don't want it to be like I placed it there. Okay, so that is looking really, really good. Let's see if I can show it to you. Okay. All right, we're going to let all this dry for a few minutes. I need to make sure that soft gel is really good and dry over here. And then we'll be back. Okay, so we are back and everything is dry. So I'm going to go ahead and attach, and I want this attached down near the bottom. And, I mean, there isn't really a bottom on a can, but on a round, on a round circle. But I'm going to attach it down like that so that I can put these. Actually, you know what? I'm still playing. I may just put this up on top here like this. Yeah, I rather like that. So I think I might do that. Now, the soft gel did not hold these really heavy pieces, so I ended up going back in with some glue, and I'm going to do the same on this and attach this with glue. Okay, I'm going to slide that right in there. Let's see if I can prop that while it dries. There we go. Okay, so we've got that. Now, I gessoed the frozen Charlotte doll, and now I'm going to take a little bit of the pewter mica powders. I'll show it to you. Pewter mica powder and a paintbrush. Put a little water on your thing because you don't want much, but basically what you're doing is making like a paint. Mica powders can be made into sprays if you prefer to spray. Again, I didn't just, in the environment that I'm in, I didn't want to have to pull out a box and make it difficult for you to see. So I'm just making it into a paint, and I'm just going to brush it over the frozen Charlotte doll, and all I'm really trying to accomplish here is just to give it a little bit of shine, not actually any color. Okay, and I think I'm just going to put it right on her. Dab this brush off so it's not so wet. And I'm just looking for some highlight, not an actual paint job. Okay, I think I need a little more right at the top here. Okay. And now I want to lay her in among these pieces. So I'm going to put it about right there. And I'm going to use this glue again. And like I said earlier, we will be carrying these in Garn Artsy. I'm just waiting for the rest of the supplies to come in for it. And they'll be sold in sets of 3. So I'm just going to hold that till it tacks for a minute. And they will be different sizes again. Okay, so I'm really liking how this is looking. And now I'm going to start attaching some flowers. And I'm going to use the same pewter and give these flowers some shine as well. And like I said, you may want to use a spray. It's a lot faster if you spray, but for the sake of video, it's easier to do it this way. So I'm brushing it on. And I'm just trying to get, whoops, yeah, I'm out of shot. I'm just trying to get a little bit of shine, not an actual paint job. Okay, and this is a real feel foam flower that we sell in the store. And I'm just going to keep adding until I get where I want it. Okay, and so now you can see it's got that nice shine to it, and I can start attaching. So I think I'm actually going to attach this one down here at the bottom. About right there. A little glue and let that glue down. Okay, and then I've got these resin flowers that have been gessoed white. I'm going to repeat the process with those. I'm trying to keep this pretty consistent on these. And just adding a little bit of the mica to give it that shine. outshot here a little bit. Let me see if I can adjust this. There we go. And just brushing it on. And I'm going to just add these in here. So I think I want that one right there. Tuck this one up in here. I'm just going to use the end of my paintbrush to push it up. And that one I think we'll do right there. Okay, and then I'm going to add a couple more up on this side. There we go. Okay. Now I think I'm going to just take a little bit of this powder again and do just a bit of a shine. Add a little water. Just a little bit of a shine onto some other parts, just so it kind of blends in. I'm just adding interest, nothing more. One thing that you can do with this, since it is just a water base, is just go in with your wet brush and you can adjust. If you feel like you've got too much, you can take a little bit off. Blend it in, that sort of thing. And if you do it before it's completely dry, then it makes for easy process. Okay, and I think that I am going to call that done. So here's what we have. Let's see if I can get it to focus real quick. And there we go. You can see all the dimension. Okay. All right, so I will take some still pictures and put them at the end of the video. So I appreciate you joining us today. And I hope that you will be inspired by this and make something fun and rusty yourself. Have a great day, and thanks again for watching.